Comment ça va, les amis? Six more years. Listen, okay. Boy, I know why you guys are in such a great mood today. Because Karina just had her baby. Yeah. I know she's doing well, as is baby Taya, I believe, her daughter. So we're sending her both our love, and knowing that we miss her, but knowing that she's going to miss out on all the fun we're going to have over the coming months. I also want to say I saw a number of you there last night, but I went to the Professional Women's Hockey League game last night in Ottawa. I tell you, I was there with my kids. I was so glad because, like, there were so many kids there, and particularly young women, young girls, watching, cheering on, seeing these professional women hockey players. It was just so exciting to see the energy at those games. If you guys get a chance to get out to any games in the coming months, I highly recommend it. It's a great thing to see. So we're all energized. We're all back here, and when we think about what we're doing here, let's think about those things. Let's think about those kids in the stands last night. Let's think about Karina's baby, and think about our families and our kids, and everything that pulls us together from every corner of the country to be here in Ottawa to serve Canadian families, to serve communities big and small from coast to coast to coast. That's what we're doing here. There's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of things going on around this place that Canadians more or less pay attention to. But what we have to pay attention to, and what we do pay attention to, is bringing our communities' voices to here in Ottawa. It's why we gather here. It's why we roll up our sleeves every day to fight for Canadians, to deliver for Canadians, to build that better future everyone is counting on. C'est ce qui nous rassemble d'un bout de ce pays à l'autre pour pouvoir livrer pour les Canadiens. Et qu'on ne se trompe pas, le gouvernement livre énormément pour les citoyens à travers le pays. Whether it's small craft harbor operations, supporting energy efficiency retrofits, delivering dental care for kids and now for seniors, cutting childcare fees while pushing the provinces to create more spaces, and delivering delivering benefit checks to Canadians right across the country every single month. These are the things we're fighting for every day. And we're doing these things because we hear what Canadians need. We're there in the communities. We're there listening to people, understanding their frustrations, their concerns, but also their hopes and dreams for the future. That's what brings us to Ottawa for this parliamentary session. That's what led each and every one of us to step up to serve our communities, because we wanted to create better chances, more success, better supports that are going to build that future that everyone in this country deserves and needs. You're here to be your community's voices and get things done to make people's lives better across the country. That's what drives us every single day. That's what drives us in this room. I'm not so sure about what drives folks in one of the other rooms in this town. See, when Pierre Poilievre spews conspiracy theories about climate change and talks down investments in workers and supply chains, well, we have local champions like Eric Kasmerchuk in Windsor who are making sure that Canada is attracting international investment, creating great jobs and careers, and strengthening communities. When Conservative MP Garnet Genuis justifies and defends Uganda's harmful anti-homosexuality laws, team members like Rob Oliphant are standing up to LGBTQI+ community members across the country and around the world. because everyone deserves to feel safe and welcome. Pendant que les conservateurs veulent importer la vision américaine des armes à feu, Jen O'Connell, Rachel Bandayan et Pam Damoff continuent de travailler sur des mesures pour garder nos communautés en sécurité et faire plus de contrôle des armes à feu. Pendant que Pierre Poilievre aime insulter les maires et les mairesses, les députés comme Charles Sousa, comme Joanne Thompson, aident à conclure des ententes de logement avec les municipalités, main dans la main. Et avec l'aide de toute l'équipe, on va accélérer la construction de plus d'1 demi-million de logements dans les prochaines années au Canada. And on Ukraine, and let's pause for a moment on Ukraine, because I think all of us see and understand the politics around Ukraine, unfortunately, that we're seeing here in Ottawa right now. But we have to remember why Ukraine matters. It's not just that Ukraine is a country with deep historic ties and friendship to Canada that got viciously and illegally invaded by Russia over the past years. It's that, yes, we'll stand up for our friends, but it's about more than that. It's about standing up and standing beside Ukrainians who are fighting and dying for their sovereignty, their territorial integrity, but also fighting for the international rules-based order, the UN Charter, and the principles that not only have kept us prosperous as a world for decades, but that our parents and grandparents fought and died for in World War II when it was so necessary. We are fighting for the very values that underpin our democracies, and that's why standing unequivocally with Ukraine, with Ukrainians, as long as it takes, with as much as it takes, matters so deeply for Canada and Canadians. My very first call this year was with Volodymyr Zelensky, who wanted to know that Canada still stood with him, that Canadians still stood with him. And I told him, yes, we do. The Canadian government and most of the parties in the House will continue to stand with him. But Pierre Poilievre and his Conservatives chose to vote against support for Ukraine, calling it a faraway foreign land to appease Putin apologists like Tucker Carlson and those who enable him. But while he does that, we have people like Yvonne Baker and Mark Gerritsen who are showing our Liberal government won't back down when it comes to standing up to bullies and fighting for democracy at home and around the world. Talking about democracy, let's all note that Leslyn Lewis, who dines with far-right German politicians and leads the call to withdraw Canada from the United Nations, does not speak for Canadians. She may speak for the Conservative Party of Canada, but she does not speak for Canadians. Because this isn't who Canadians are. This is not what we're discussing around kitchen tables, around community tables, around boardroom tables around the country. Let's remember that on the things that matter deeply in the daily lives of Canadians, Pierre Poilievre and his team voted against the Canada Child Benefit, the Canada Dental Care Benefit. They voted against $10 a day childcare and voted against programs for seniors. And here in our team, well, Serge Cormier put forward national school food program legislation, which Pierre Poilievre and his team were the only ones in the House to vote against. And as a team, what did we do? We fought against inequality, raised taxes on the wealthiest 1% so we could lower them for the middle class, and over the past years have helped lift over 650,000 kids out of poverty. And speaking of team, when Pierre Poilievre and Andrew Scheer decided to pull a parliamentary stunt in December that they couldn't even bother to properly show up for, I'll add, this caucus stood and voted for 30 consecutive hours. We stood up for Canadians against Conservative recklessness and showed how united we are in fighting against Conservative cuts. Je l'ai dit bien souvent, la diversité, c'est une des grandes forces du Canada. Des gens de tous les coins du monde, de toutes sortes de différentes perspectives, qui sont rassemblés dans nos valeurs pour bâtir un pays, des communautés plus ouvertes, plus compassionnées, où on partage des valeurs comme le respect, l'ouverture, l'engagement envers nos voisins. Mais c'est une force aussi pour notre caucus libéral. You know, the contrast is being drawn by some of the other parties. That within our party, we have a range of voices and perspectives on some pretty big issues, including around the Middle East. But of course, Canadians hold a range of views and perspectives on such difficult issues, and it is really, really important, and indeed it's a great strength of this party that here in this room we can have deep and serious and difficult conversations about how to move forward, how to support Canadians, how to protect and support democracy and people and civilians and innocents around the world as we build a better future for everyone. Having those difficult conversations, being able to have conversations in this room that are the reflection of conversations that need to be having across the country is a strength, not a weakness. And anyone pointing to that as a weakness does not get Canada. Because even as we are absolutely having difficult conversations that are the reflection of the perspectives of the world, we remain unequivocal and undivided on the fact that as we work towards a two-state solution in the Middle East, we need to make sure that we're standing against hatred and intolerance here in Canada for families across the country and for people around the world. That's what we're focused and united on. But of course, it is telling that the Conservatives never leave room to air differences between their colleagues. They want to silence their caucus and give out orders from the top. And we take a look at the candidates brought in by Pierre Poilievre over the past number of by-elections to understand what kind of party he is really building. They've been either insiders or ideologues or both. The Conservative elected in Manitoba's recent by-election is openly anti-abortion and opposes the ban on conversion therapy. They welcomed Robin Baber as a candidate in the GTA, even though his extremism got him kicked out of Ontario's Conservative Party. Their new MP in Oxford was a hand-picked insider who'd never been to the riding. And now, Pierre Poilievre's new candidate in Durham is a twofer. He's both an ideologue and an insider. What he's not is someone who has lived and served in the community for years. This is a candidate who Poilievre expects will do his bidding in the riding, will be Ottawa's voice, Pierre Poilievre's voice, in Durham, instead of being Durham's voice in Ottawa. Shame. Shame. And that's especially clear when you compare their candidate to our guy, Robert Rock, who has grown up, lived, and served in Durham for years as an engaged community leader, as someone who is excited to bring the voices, the concerns, the ambitions of Durham to right here in Ottawa, to right here in this caucus. See, over the past number of by-elections, this party has been focused on making sure we get the right voices to represent their communities, to meet Canadians where they are, and to solve the challenges they're facing. That's probably why our shares in the by-elections, particularly in Conservative ridings, keep going up, and Pierre Poilievre's shares keep going down, because Pierre Poilievre is focused on bringing his party further to the right, while we are focused on meeting Canadians where they are, where they need us to be for them. I mean, as we all return to Ottawa to do the work of the coming parliamentary session, we face a lot of responsibilities, a lot of different challenges, but our fundamental job, as I've said a few times, as I've been saying since 2015, is to be the voice of your community here in Ottawa, and not the other way around. Et vous tous, vous avez travaillé pour vos nominations. Vous avez été des leaders dans vos communautés. Vous gardez ces connexions avec le comté. Vous gardez l'écoute de vos concitoyens en priorité à chaque étape. Et ce n'est pas juste une question de faire de la bonne politique, de rester connecté avec les gens. C'est ces conversations au jour le jour, cette connexion avec les gens qui vous ont envoyé ici, qui vous permettent et qui nous permettent en tant que gouvernement de livrer sur les besoins de ces citoyens, de répondre aux appels, de répondre aux priorités, aux préoccupations auxquelles ils font face. And that's how, like Canada, this team is so effective because of its differences, because of the perspectives we bring, not just from every corner of the country, but from a multitude of stories, of histories, of cultures, of languages, of identities. Who we are is our greatest strength. And that perhaps is why the Conservatives try to spend so much time breaking that down, highlighting that rigorous, robust conversation is somehow a weakness, that the only strength can be when everyone speaks like dear leader. That's not what built this country. That's certainly not what built this House of Commons. The idea that you have 338 Canadians who come together to share the perspectives, the hopes, the dreams, the concerns, the priorities of their citizens, so that we can all figure it out as a parliament and keep delivering on the better future, that's at the heart of what democracy is. And it's more important now than ever because the world is in such a difficult place. Because Canadians are seeing their paychecks just don't go as far as they used to. Because people know that even though wages are rising, they're really worried about renegotiating their mortgage as it comes up for renewal with interest rates as high as they are. Les Canadiens sont inquiets. Ils veulent des solutions. Mais malheureusement, il y a des politiciens qui veulent juste se servir de cette inquiétude pour amplifier la colère pour leur propre intérêt. The opposition, they don't have a lot of advantages in opposition, but one of them is you get to talk only about what you want to talk about. And you get to avoid talking about things that you don't feel you need to talk about or don't want to talk about. Governments get to talk about and have to talk about everything. And that's right, because we're in charge of so much. But the opposition, particularly this Conservative opposition, they choose not to talk about a whole bunch of things. They'll gladly not talk at all about Ukraine or about Russia. They'll yell about climate, but they won't talk about where global investors are looking for places to invest, to create jobs, to create opportunities, whether it be in St. Thomas, Ontario, whether it be in Saint-Hilaire, whether it be with Dow Chemical in Alberta, whether it be anywhere across the country where serious investments are coming in. Indeed, since 2015, we've seen foreign direct investment increase by over 60% in Canada because the world is looking at what Canada is doing. But conservatives won't talk about that. They don't talk about the solutions that they're proposing because they have none. They don't talk about how they're going to solve the challenges that Canadians are facing. Mais nous, le travail qu'on fait, c'est le même travail qu'on a commencé il y a 8 ans. D'être là pour les Canadiens. De les outiller pour pouvoir bâtir des communautés plus fortes, un avenir plus fort pour eux, pour leurs familles. Our work is to strengthen the middle class and support those working hard to join it. That's what we've been focused on for 8 years. That's what we're going to continue to do. And that's actually how we've made it through times of extraordinary turbulence over the past years. And we're beginning to see and feel that turbulence decrease and the clear landing come into view. As we see the opportunities for global investment around our fight against climate change, for partnership with Indigenous peoples on big resource projects and including them in the economy, on equality and equity that's bringing more people into the workforce, creating paths to success, not just for jobs now, but for jobs for generations to come. That was a conversation I had with a number of third-generation steelworkers in Hamilton at Dofasco ArcelorMittal who were saying, I'm a third generation, but now because of this investment this government is making in transforming this steel mill to be ready for the future challenges, there are going to be a 7th and 8th generation of steel workers here in Hamilton. People are facing big, complex problems. They don't need slogans. They need thoughtful solutions. We've gotten a lot of big things done over these past years, and we're eager to do even more faster because we can never stop pushing to get more things done for Canadians. And we're doing it. You know, I've, in the course of this job, spoken with an awful lot of leaders around the world and built pretty good relationships with a whole bunch of them. And they look at Canada, I'll tell you honestly, they are envious of the advantages that we have. We have trade deals with 2/3 of the global economy, the only G7 country, major industrialized economy with a free trade deal with every other G7 economy, which means we can trade with the world as a reliable partner. We have an openness to the world, not just to trade, but to welcoming in people, the best and the brightest, as we grow our economies, as we create opportunities in our communities, but for innovation and work for tomorrow as well. We have improving relationships with Indigenous peoples. It is really important, not just in Canada, but increasingly around the world, as we've demonstrated that bond of trust is carefully being rebuilt, and there's still a lot of work to done. But we have shown that we understand that Canada cannot be successful unless the Indigenous people who have lived on this land for millennia are also at the heart of our success. People look at our country and they see extraordinary natural resources that the world is so envious of, that we have and that we are willing to share and sell to the world in responsible ways to make sure that we are meeting the high expectations of standards of a global population that does want to be able to progress and live well, but does not anymore want to do it at the cost of the environment or of labor standards on the other side of the world or of the well-being of vulnerable people. And Canada is suited for that with our resources. But our greatest advantage, the thing that more people around the world are envy of us for than anything else, is Canadians ourselves. Ambitious, forward-thinking, better educated than anyone else in the OECD, willing to step up and work hard to build a stronger community, a stronger future for ourselves, for our communities, for our country, for our neighbors. We have in this country a richness and a depth that the world is envious of. And it doesn't mean everything's great. We know things are challenging for Canadians right now, which is why we continue to step up with investments to support Canadians and push back against Poilievre's clamoring for cuts to programs that Canadians rely on. We will be there for people as we've always been in these difficult times as we build that prosperous future that everyone is looking for in this country. We have remembered that the economy is not numbers. The economy is people. Women have joined the economy in record levels because of our investments in a CCB and in childcare. Indigenous communities are now treated as partners in big projects. Scientists know that we are a government that relies and counts on evidence, data, and innovation. And our economic policies, including and especially our climate policies, are drawing in global investors to the degree that in the first half of last year, we were third in the world after the US and Brazil when it comes to foreign investment in Canada, because the world sees what Canada and Canadians are succeeding in doing. And this is creating jobs and careers and stability for communities, not just for now, but for generations to come. From Bridgewater, Nova Scotia, to Saint-Hilaire with Northvolt, to Stellantis and Volkswagen in southern Ontario, to mines across the north, to places like Dow Chemical installing in Alberta, to E1 Moly in BC, to investments we're seeing from coast to coast to coast, hydrogen investments in Stephenville, Newfoundland. We are drawing in the world because Canada is an exciting place to be right now, despite all the challenges. Canadians rightly love this country. And they expect us to continue to have a government that lives up to their vision, their hopes, and their dreams of who we are and what we can accomplish all together. So let us here today, as we launch this winter session of Parliament, commit ourselves to this work. Let's keep listening to Canadians. Let's renew ourselves to stay focused on what matters to Canadians. And remember every day that Canada is the best country in the world, and we are going to work every day to make it even better. Merci beaucoup, mes amis.